Okay, so yesterday we are now up to Tzadik Zayin Amud Beis, and we're in the middle of a sugya, a fascinating sugya over here. That Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Shmuel, the Gemara came out yesterday, was talking about a din of Rabbi Yehuda. If a person throws a chayfet from Rishut HaYochid to the Rishut HaRabim, and it traveled in the Rishut HaRabim 4 amot, so Rabbi Yehuda says Yechayev 2, and the Chachamim said Yechayev 1. That's the way Shmuel explained Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara said, that's the way that we explain Rabbi Yehuda, in order for us not to say that Shmuel was talking about Rebbe, so then we would have a stira in Rebbe. And therefore we wanted to say that when Rav Yehuda, the Amora, the Talmud of Shmuel, said in the name of Shmuel, that Yechayev 2, he was referring to this sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, the Tana, speaking about this story. Ready? You take this item, you throw it from your house into the Rishut Rabim. So that's a classic case of Hotza'ah, and it lands. But not only did it land right at the beginning of the Rishut Rabim, it landed 4 amas into the Rishut Rabim. So I did 2 things. I went from Rishut HaYachid into Rishut Rabim, and then there's another Hotza'ah that I did. What's that? That I carried 4 amot in Rishut Rabim.
Because it landed and it went to another 4 amot? That's the situation through it. So because it landed and it went 4 amot, it's considered that he carried it 4 amot?
Yeah, because he holds klu to kamisha hun chadami. Means it landed right when it gets into the airspace of Rishut Rabim. It lands right at the beginning of Rishut Rabim. So that's it, you're done 1. And now,
it took 1 straight.
Took 1 straight, but since in halacha, according to Rabbi Yehuda, whenever you're in the airspace, it's considered like it landed right there. So it landed right at the beginning. That's already 1 landing in Rishut Rabim, and you uprooted it in your okeret in Rishut HaYachid. And now it picks itself up and lands 4 amot away. So therefore,
But if it just passes through,
yeah, it's considered right. It just passes through.
so it's not like you're picking it up and it's passing through. It's just passing it 4 amot across the border. You're saying, or whatever the
Let's say this is Rishut HaYachid, right? Private domain. And this is Rishut HaRabim.
Yeah.
I take the item and it goes 4 amot of Rishut HaRabim. That's already. So the thing is like this. Really, in halacha, according to Yehuda, right when it went over here, before it landed over here, it's already like it landed.
By just passing through.
So if it landed here, so the second that it starts flying through,
What's the difference how far it goes? What's crossing it?
4 amot is considered carrying the Rishut HaRabim.
Okay, so then why should it be considered 2?
because even if it would have landed here,
Consider 1. It's crossing 4. That's it. Cross.
Because
it's a package deal. It's like it's crossed as 1.
okay, because even if it would have landed over here and not have crossed at all, it would have been chayav. Why? Because there's another way to be chayav in carrying on Shabbat, even if you don't carry 4 amot. If you carry from private domain to public domain, and that's what had he thrown it and when it went like this, he would have been chayav. So Rabbi Yehuda says, well, that's what did happen, even though you didn't see it. Even though it kept going, but you should know it landed. So, that's already 1. Plus 4 amot. 2. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. So the Gemara says, Mimai. So the Gemara says like this. And I'll prove to you that Shmuel is talking about this story, and it makes a lot of sense that Shmuel said that Rabbi Yehuda holds too. Because it must be that there are two chiyuvim, that Rabbi Yehuda meant two. Because if when Rabbi Yehuda said chayav, and the Chachamim said patur, they were discussing, they were arguing about one chiyuv, not two chiyuvim. So what, the Chachamim say patur, you don't even have one chiyuv? How could you not have one chiyuv? You for sure carried. You went from your home to Rishut Abim, right? Wow.
If you just mention this name when you do the lesson.
Thank you so much. So the Gemara says, see the Chachamim hold you chayav on one. So the discussion here about the second one. So the Gemara says that's your proof. That's not a proof. We up to Mimayim. We lines down on Tzadik Zayin on base 97b 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines down. Maybe a little, maybe really Rabbi Yehuda is only talking about one. The Rabbanon patri legamri, and the Rabbanon, when they said you're not chayiv, they actually meant you're totally. And the Gemara was trying to prove that that can't be. Why? Because how does it make sense to say that the Chachamim will say patur entirely, not even two, not even one? Excuse me. The Gemara was trying to prove that the argument must have been about the second one. Rabbi Yehuda meant the second one you're also chayav, and the Chachamim said relax, only one. But the Gemara is saying no, maybe it's not true. Maybe they're really arguing if you're chayav one or zero. So the Gemara, how could the Chachamim say that you're not chayav at all? You definitely carried from your domain to the Rishut Rabim. There's definitely something going on here, right? No. How is it possible to say that the Chachamim say zero? We're talking about a specific case. The guy said, listen, I want to throw this, and I want it to land right when it reaches Rishut Rabim. אבל התולדה במקום אב לא מחייב רבי יהודה. The Gemara was trying to say like this. The guy wants it to land right here. Okay?
In or out or right before?
In, but right at the beginning of it. Okay? So what happened was like this. That it did not land where I wanted it to land. It was such a bad throw. It went 4 amot further than what I wanted it to land, right? So Rabbi Yehuda says, you say kluta kamishahuncha, okay? So therefore, you are going to be chayav for what you want. You want because in halacha it landed. Chacham say, no, it didn't land there because we don't say kluta kamishuncha. Now, okay, but what about the land where it did land? Everybody agrees it landed over here. Yeah, that's not where I wanted it to land. So therefore, the halacha is that the Chacham say you don't say kluta shmincha k'moy shehuncha, and therefore my machshava was not whatever I thought. Didn't happen. So therefore I'm going to be totally patur.
Why? But it doesn't threw it from the Yachid.
Not the way I wanted it.
Because it wasn't the way I wanted it, but it still passes the domain. You wanted it dafka to land in the Rishut Rabim.
Not there. Not where it landed. And since it I wanted it to land right at the beginning. I'm not going to be chayiv. If a person's trying to do a certain malacha and something, he's not chayav. I want it over here because my grandmother asked me if I could please throw her the piece of cake, so she doesn't have to walk to me.
But even if he would have thrown
Meantime,
landed where he wanted it, he would have been chayav.
If it would have landed where he wanted it, it would have been chayav. Yeah, but it didn't. My grandmother said, "Give me the piece of cake. Throw me the cake." I'm 2 amot away from her, but she can't walk at all. So my grandmothers are not alive, so I could say this. But so you're 2 amot away, so you throw the piece of cake to her, and the cake, instead of being 2 amot away from her, she can't walk. Now it's 4 amot away from her. And there's Rebbeinu Shalom. Very upset at yourself. So you didn't want that at all. So that you're not chayav for. So the only way that you could be chayav is if it's considered that it did land. I wanted it to land on my grandmother, and halachically it landed there. That's only if you hold klute k'mishuncha. That's Rabbi Yehuda. That's one. Yep. Now, so if Rabbi Yehuda is holding one, so he's not being mechayev but told him in Makamav. Before we try to change it to Rabbi Yehuda, because we said maybe Rabbi Yehuda could hold b'makam av and not Rebbe, because Rebbe we already found out. He said hadvarim ela hadvarim only 39. Maybe yes, but the Gemara is saying you have no raya. Even if Shmuel was talking about Rabbi Yehuda Shita, could be it's talking about this case, and they're only arguing about 1 or 0, and Rabbi Yehuda is a 1, and you don't see anything. He's not trying to say that Yechayev told him a Makamav too. So the Gemara says, Lo yisakadaitach. Lo yisakadaitach. Don't let this enter your mind. Why? I have one little kasha. So, the truth is, I'm going to say one thing. It is very, very important. The Gemara's kasha is not really a kasha on... The Gemara, really, if you look at Shmuel's words, he says, Mechayev hoya shtayim, atolda b'makamav. He actually was Mechayev too. So, what the Gemara is really asking on Shmuel, what was Shmuel's proof? Shmuel did say Yemchayev Shtayim and is going over here with Rabbi Yehuda, and the Gemara said the proof is, the reason why Shmuel knew it is because if they're arguing about 1, that means that they're about 0. That doesn't make sense. So the Gemara is saying to Shmuel, it's really a problem. So the Gemara is saying to Shmuel, and therefore if it's 1 and 0, then you don't have a proof, Shmuel, that Rabbi Yehuda holds Yemchayev 2, because he holds Yemchayev a told him a Makamav. So this is really an attack on Shmuel. How did Shmuel know? The Gemara said, I know how Shmuel knows, because if it's 1 and 0, 0, how could it be 0? The Gemara says, yeah, it could be 0. And that could be the machloket. And Rabbi Yehuda has nothing to do with told him Makamav. How did Shmuel have the confidence to know? How did he know that Rabbi Yehuda is actually saying, you can be chayiv a told him Makamav, and it's 2? So the Gemara says, Lo yisakadaitach, because the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Moisef Afa Shovet. Because you're trying to work it out so sweetly for Rabbi Yehuda that he could save him and say that he's not going told him Makamav. So you don't see that Yechayev told him Makamav. So we said, don't even try saying that Rabbi Yehuda holds like that. Because we find that Rabbi Yehuda said that if you have this that after they put the warp and the woof into the loom, they had this stick called a karka, and the stick would go through all the threads, and it would straighten out the threads. Okay? So, there was another thing that they used, that when they put the warp into the woof threads, they had to stretch them. But the stretching had to be across the entire width of the weave. Therefore, they would have to hit it a few times, called a medactic, and to make that it was stretched out. And Rabbi Yehuda says that so Amru Loi the Chacham said to him, Shovet hareu b'chlal mesech u'medaktek hareu b'chlal oireg. Shovet, getting each string out of the other, that's included in putting the strings through the loop. Medaktek, smacking them hard, that they look even. And that's not a nu melacha. Dinu l'tavai b'hadi adodi. With the toldis. And shevet, he did, and diktek in one helem. It is saying that chayav chatat, when he's shevet and he medaktek, out for the avot of mesech and oireg. Even though shevet is a tolda, and medaktik is a told of oirig. And the Chacham say, no, Shevet is part of Mesech, and therefore you're not going to be chayiv on both of them, because it's part of the Av Melacha. What? Yes? Okay. Okay, fine. I'll explain that. And the Gemara says, from here we see the machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan is if you're chayiv a tolda b'makamav. So what the Gemara is saying is as follows: there's a machloket again between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan. If shovet and medaktik, I don't know how to really translate them in English. There were some sort of sticks that really aided. I don't even understand it 100% myself, because I'm not familiar with the loom very, very well, only from masechet Shabbat a little bit. And basically, the shovet was this stick that took strings that were intertwined within each other. They were by mistake, they were put in, they weren't lying straight, and he had to like pick them out of each other, so they had to lie. Each one lies individually. The medaktek was some sort of help in the weave. He made sure the weave was stretched out and flat across the entire thickness of width of the weave, and he used it. So the machloket over here is, seemingly, the Gemara is trying to say that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that even though that since it's a tolda of the Av, which means each one of those two actions, of one of them is a tolda of placing the strings into the loom, and the other one is a tolda of the Av, of oreg, of weaving. So the Rabbi Yehuda says, good, they're toldot, and I'm going to be chayav for them as well, even if I did them with their father Av, with their father Melacha. But Rabbi Yehuda is saying, you're chayav too. And no, you're going to be chayav one, because it's the Av Melacha. But all in all, what we do see here, at the end of the day, is the Makoim Av. And that's why Shmuel had the right to learn the original Machloket, Rabbi Yehuda and one, and make Rabbi Yehuda the one that said that you're going to be chayiv two in the Makom of the Av. So the Gemara says, that's your proof? Mimai. Maybe the machloket over there about if you want to include shovet and medaktek into the third nine malachot, he's not speaking about that you did it with its Av, And Rabbi Yehuda is saying, oh, well, you chayiv another one for the tolda. That's not what is going on. Maybe you did shevet, this picker, without placing the things into the loom. You place them into the loom, let's say Erev Shabbat. And you did dikdek without oreg. You did the oreg before Shabbat. But Rabbi Yehuda al tolda b'makam av lo mechayiv. And Rabbi Yehuda is not being mechayiv a tolda in the case of a father. And the machloket is the Hani avot ninu. V'Rabbanan Tzavri hani toldot ninu. Rabbi Yehuda says, I'm adding these two to the avot. Not I'm adding these two that you're going to be chayav chatat because it's a tolda. No, he's actually adding two avot to the list. V'Rabbanan Tzavri, what are you talking about? Hani toldot ninu. These are not their own avot. You don't have 41, you have 39. These are just toldot of oreg and mesech. And therefore, but everyone is in agreement that a tolda is not chayav b'mokem av. And the Gemara actually brings a proof that this is the real pshat in the Braita. Teida, and I'll prove it to you. The Katoni, Rabbi Yehuda Mosif. What was the language that he used? He adds, I amit b'shlama avot. If you tell me that he was saying these are two additional avot, my mosif, then what would the language add mean? Mosif avot. He's adding another two avot to the list. You said 39, he adds another two. But if you say he's saying that these are really toldot, but you chayav on them anyways, because you chayav a tolda b'mokem av when you did it with the av. So my mosif. What do you mean he's adding? Before Rabbi Yehuda it said that there are 39 avot. Rabbi Yehuda adds two. He's not adding two more to those 39. He's just saying that these two toldot, if you do them with the avot, you chayav, because you chayav tolda b'mokem av. So why would he use the language mosif? So it must be that what he's talking about is not a tolda. When you commit a tolda with its father melacha, but rather he's saying that these two are additional avot, and therefore, when the Braita, let's go back to the original Braita of Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, have a machloket. If you're going, Rabbi Yehuda says that you're chayav when you throw into the Rishut Rabim, and it traveled 4 amot, all it means is that Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev one chatat, and the Chachamim are mechayev 0 chataot. And why is there only one chatat? It's kluta k'mishuhun chodamya, so it landed where my grandma wanted it in halacha, and therefore you're chayav. According to the Chachamim, you're not even going to be chayav with any, because you don't say kluta k'mishuhuncha, that when it's caught in the airspace, it's as if it landed, and therefore the only place it landed was far away from my grandmother, which is not where I wanted, and I'm going to be patur. Itmar nami, we also learned, Rabbi v'Rav Yosef da'amri tavayu l'chiv Rabbi Yehuda ela echat. Rabbi Yehuda was only obligated one chatat in that Braita. Okay, so we have basically a machloket between Rabbi Rav Yosef and Shmuel how to understand that shita of Rabbi Yehuda. What's Rabbi Yehuda saying? 2, because it's the tolda b'mokem av. And what's the tolda b'mokem av? Let's just explain it again. It's because, according to Shmuel, the way you understand that Braita is not because he didn't want it to land there. He did want it to land there. But now you have 2 things that happen. One is, and then it landed here. And the Chachamim say, you don't say that it landed here at all, so it's only 1. So it's 2 versus 1. And when Rabbi Yehuda says, you have 2 for the Hotza'ah and for the Ha'avara in the Rishut Rabim, even though Ha'avara is a tolda, b'mokem av, of the Hotza'ah, and therefore, that's what Shmuel holds, it's 2 versus 1, but Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef say no, it was machloket about 1 versus 0, and it's talking about that he didn't want it to land where it actually landed. according to what you thought. Gotta move. Trying to translate, but we have to move. Sorry. So, according to what you thought at first, that Yehuda was mechayev two chataot. One for traveling out of the Reshut Yachid to Reshut Rabim, and one for going through the Reshut Rabim 4 amot. Where does he want it to land? I thought someone was going to ask me this question before. Where does he want it to land? We're saying, according to Shmuel, and at least the Havamid according to them, that when it went like this, in halacha it went like this, and then it does a new one. So he asked the guy, "Excuse me, sir, where did you want this thing to land?" If he tells you, "Really, I wanted it to land at the beginning," so you tell him, "Mazel tov, it did. Even though you didn't see it in halacha, it did. So you're chayav for that one, but you're not chayav for the second one because you didn't want it there." And if he says, "Oh, I didn't want that halachic landing over there. I only wanted it to land where it actually ended up landing," fine. So you'll be chayav from going from Reshut Yachid to that spot, but not the new havara of landing here and then uprooting itself, because I didn't want that. So you can't be chayav more than one, because you only had one das. So how could you get two? Talking about, I don't really care where it lands. I want it Reshut Rabim. Wherever it lands. Oh, you want it wherever it lands? So then it landed twice. If you hold, because Kluta can be shown because once and then twice. Abotai. Fine. Says the Gemara, Pshita nitkaven lizrok shmone v'zarak arba harei katav shem Shimon. The Gemara goes into this das now. You're going to enjoy this. If the guy's trying to write his name, okay? He wants to write, I don't know, his name, someone's name, Shimon. Yeah? On Shabbat. He forgets it's Shabbat, he takes the pen. Actually, this is not my pen. Takes a pen, and he starts writing Shimon. But after he writes Shem from the word Shimon, which is a name itself, 2 letters. It's 2 letters. He gets someone calls him, and he stops. So he's chayav. Why? Because at the end of the day, even though he wanted to write a name that had 5 letters, Shimon, but he wrote a name. He wrote name. Actually, the word Shem means name, but he wrote a word that means something. And he wrote 2 letters, which is enough, and he wrote it. If he's going to be chayav too, even though he didn't end up write the entire thing that he wanted to. My dat was to write the name Shimon. So normally, if you only do part of what you're trying to do, it's not enough. But here, you ended up writing a whole word. And it was 2 otiyot, which is enough for writing. Therefore, that's enough. So the Gemara says, 1 second.
I'm sorry, he wrote the full name?
No, he wrote Shem. The first 2 letters of Shimon is Shin Mem. It comes out to be Shem, which means name. So you wrote a whole word, even though you wanted to write a much longer word, so you're going to be chayav. So therefore, what would that be compared? For one, because you need 2 letters for writing. So that would be, now if you want to compare, you want to have a comparative case in carrying, in the malacha of carrying, what would you need? What would you have? A guy wants to throw the ball 8 amot, 16 feet. And what happens is, it goes only 4 amot.
So he gets for what are you going to accomplish, not for what he wanted.
Okay. So since, at the end of the day, even though it didn't really go where he wanted, but you got yourself a whole 4 amot, which is the malacha, so you'll be chayav. That for sure. Because it went half of what you wanted. And that half was a whole malacha. And also, but what about, nitkaven lizrok arba v'zarak shmone, ma'adin. This guy, se pasó la mano. It's just an expression. I'm using it as a pun over here. What happened? I wanted to throw 4.
Went further than what he wanted.
And went 8. Went further than what he wanted. Mao, what's halacha? I mean, happily. Do we say, look, he wanted it to go 4. That did happen. It did go 4. 8 includes 4. In every 8 there is 4. Or Dilma, where he wanted, it did not land. So it didn't land exactly where he wanted. So the Gemara says, isn't this what Ravina told Rav Ashi in the last case that we just said? That if he wanted to let it land in the first place, he can't be chayav for landing in the far place. Ravina told Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi told him, you're right, but he wanted to land wherever. He doesn't really care. But let's say he did care, and he wanted it to land in the first spot, and it went flying over 1. Because you only say kluta kibishuncha, and you don't, right? So therefore you shouldn't be chayv on 2. So we see clearly that if it went further than what you wanted, then you cannot be chayav on what? Ravina was asking, not one, Ravina was asking Rav Ashi, you can't be chayav on it because it didn't land where you wanted. Even in the case where it went further than what you wanted, you can't be chayav here. Because it never landed where I wanted it to land. And the fact that it landed over here is not good because I didn't want it there. And Rav Ashi didn't tell you wrong. Rav Ashi said, okay, we're talking about a case where he doesn't really care. So the Gemara says, okay? You're going to tell me that let it be compared to the case of writing. I mean, in the case of writing, you wrote Shem out of Shimon. Midam, you can't compare it to there. Why? Listen to this. Hatam kam de loktiv Shem lo michtiv le Shimon. There, write the word Shem. You can't write Shimon. So part of Shimon. So I'm very excited about the fact that I wrote Shem because that is the beginning of my journey to Shimon. But when a guy wants to throw something 8 amot and he throws it 4, right? So what case are we dealing with now? We wanted to know if you wanted to throw it 4 amot and you threw it 8. So you went overboard, right? You went overboard. And then that case, fine. So we said you went overboard. But what about the other case where you went under what you wanted to throw? So we wanted to compare that to Shem Mishimon. So the Gemara is saying that that's not a comparison either. Why? Because when you went under, it says the Gemara, if you don't throw it 4, you're not going to get 8. You could throw it 8 in one shot. You don't have to first throw it 4. It doesn't have to land by the 4. Throw 8. By Shimon, in order for me to get Shimon, you can't get straight from the beginning of the Shin to the Nun suddenly. You skip over everything. You have to write first the whole word, Shem. And then there will come out a Shimon at the end. So you have to first complete. But when you try to throw 8, you don't have to throw 4 and let it land by 4 and then do another throw. And actually when you throw 8, you don't want it to land at all in the 4. So if it lands at the end of 4, it's not what I wanted. And saying Therefore, you cannot compare it to Shem Shimon at all. It's not. Well, this is the shame of the Shimon. No, it's not. I didn't want in the shame part. By the shame in the Shimon, you can't say, "Oh, I didn't want to write shame of Shimon." That right in the shame. You did want to write shame. You were very excited about shame, even though you had to go stop and you went to do something. That's half of your journey. Had to be taken care of. Fine. Tanu Rabbanan, Hazorek min reshut harabim l'reshut harabim, reshut hayachid ba'emtza. 400 chayav. And this is a new thing. You throw from reshut harabim to reshut harabim, and you have reshut hayachid in the middle. Yesterday we said it's a machloket if there's a roofed middle, right? So then it's like it landed in that dark area, so it's like it landed. Here we're not talking about that. We're talking about it went through the reshut hayachid, and what's the problem? Reshut harabim. How much did it travel in reshut harabim? It went 2 amot in the first reshut harabim, 2 amot in the second reshut harabim. So it traveled 4 amot in reshut harabim. But it's 2 separate highways. There's a reshut hayachid that divides the two. Since there's a reshut hayachid in between them, they now constitute as 2. They're rendered as 2 distinct, separate. So the question is, could you be chayav carrying 4 amot of reshut harabim in 2, and you have to join 2 reshut harabims to make the 4 amot happen?
Did we figure out already that from the knisa of the reshut harabim to the yachid and the yetziah, like when it comes in and when it goes into the next one, are those considered prohibition? When he throws it, so once it leaves reshut harabim, goes into the yachid, that entering, is that considered a carrying between reshuyot? Are we not considering that anymore as one of the 39? We're only talking now if we're carrying in for, but from the from reshut to reshut.
From reshut harabim to reshut hayachid?
Yeah.
In a regular case, reshut harabim to reshut hayachid?
Yeah.
It's called hachnasa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a tolda. The Gemara came out, that's a tolda.
So we're not using those now as because all we're talking about is if he's carrying in the 2 and 2 or carrying all 4. We're not adding the tolda in there?
Oh. You're saying that what happened to the fact that it landed with reshut hayachid?
Yeah, well, that's part of
No, because that's only if you say kluta. We're talking about a case now that it flew through the whole thing. So look at the Gemara right now. The Gemara is going to talk about the kluta. But, so the Gemara says, if it went 4 amot, chayav. Pachot mi 4 amot, patur. What's my kamash shalom? What's the chiddush? Obviously, you're going to be, so the Gemara says, kamash shalom, reshuyot mitztafot, ulo amrin kluta k'mashucha. There's 2 chidushim. One is that the 2 reshut harabims, even what do you mean? If you go 4 reshut harabim v'chayav, obviously. No, because 2 separate reshut harabims. And the other chidush is that you don't say kluta k'mishucha in that reshut. Because if you did, then you should be chayav, even if you cannot put the 2 reshut harabims together. You should be chayav for what you said, from going from reshut harabim into the reshut hayachid because of pluto k'mishuncha. Now, okay, fine. So this is a great chidush. Amrav Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda Amrav Abba Amrav Huna Amrav Hamav Rabba Patur. Lefisho Eno Domele de Glei Midbar. We begin a new sugya, Rabotai, a very interesting sugya. A reshut harabim that has a roof over it. Okay, you have this fancy reshut harabim that has a beautiful roof. Doesn't have to have a beautiful roof. A roof over it. Is that called reshut harabim? You say, what's the difference? It's 16 amot wide, it has 600,000 people walking through. What's the difference if it has a roof or not? The answer is because the golem of the midbar, the way the Jews traveled, is they did not have a roof. And carrying in the Reshut Rabim 4 amot. Havara is a tolda. Halach l'Moshe Sinai. It's a tolda of the melacha of Hotza'ah. And therefore, we have to learn everything from the Midbar, the way it was, the Hotza'ah there. What happened? Everybody carried their nidavot, their presents, their donations to the Mishkan from their tents into the Reshut Rabim, which was Machane Levia, where Moshe Rabbeinu lived. Everybody would come there to learn Torah. That Reshut Rabim was not Mikura, did not have a roof over it. And therefore, you do not have a source that a Reshut Rabim that has a roof is rendered as a different type of area. It's enclosed. A Reshut Rabim has to be no roof over it. Okay? So that means that if you go ahead, probably Isur D'Rabbanan, but if you go ahead and you carry from your private domain into Reshut Rabim with a roof, you're not chayav.
Like, what happens if you're under a bridge? Like, the Reshut Rabim is, like, there's a bridge right above you. It's a huge place for elders.
And your house is right next to the bridge, and you carry from your house into under the bridge. Even if under the bridge is a massive Reshut Rabim and everybody's walking there, exactly, since it has a roof, not chayav. So the Gemara says, why? Because in the Midbar they didn't have, the carrying in the Midbar was not that type of Reshut Rabim. So the Gemara is now going to go through the measurements of the wagons. As you remember, the wagons, remember they had 4 wagons. 1, 2, passed over Moshit, the Krushim, and they would place the Krushim on the wagons. And the area between the wagons we called what? That's where we learned Reshut Rabim. So now the Gemara wants to figure out how there was a Reshut Rabim underneath this. All that space of Reshut Rabim had a roof. You know what the roof was? The Krashim themselves. And since it was roofed over, and still we consider that Reshut Rabim, so you see that you're wrong, that Reshut Rabim can, an area that has a roof over it can be rendered as a Reshut Rabim. This is what the Gemara's plan is now. And therefore the Gemara is going to have to work out all the calculations of how they placed the Krashim on the wagons, how big the wagons were, how much area did the Krashim actually cover from one wagon to the other. And we're going to different calculations. It's very fascinating sugya. Says the Gemara, Eini, is that true? No area in the Reshut Rabim of the Midbar that had a roof over it. The Agalot, the Mekorot Havyan, the Agalot were roofed. I wish I had a better word for that. Were covered. Okay. In Lashon HaKodesh, it's a much better word. Covered, you say whatever, mechusa. And Mekorot is a word that means covered for a roof. Roofed, but I don't like it. The Mekorot Havyan, they were covered with Krashim. And Rav said in the name of Rabbi Chia, Agalot, the wagons. Tachteyan, the area beneath them, beneath the actual wagons. Ubeineyan, and between every wagon to the next wagon. Vitzideyan, and the area between the wall of the wagon, wheel of the wagon, okay, Reshut Harabim. They were all considered Reshut Harabim, meaning for which halacha? For the halacha of carrying 4 amot over there, or for carrying from a private domain into that area. They were all Reshut Harabim, all those areas. Inside the wagon, beneath the wagon, between the wall and the wheel of the wagon, all that is Reshut Harabim.
Why do I say inside? It says here inside? Inside.
No, I said inside. No, inside the areas between the two wagons. Yeah, inside the wagons is Reshut Yachid, right? It's in the wagon. That was the whole problem before, right? Yeah. That they were being measured from Reshut Yachid to Reshut Yachid. Thank you. Inside the wagon was Reshut Yachid. Between the wagons, all that area and beneath is all Reshut Rabim. So the Gemara says, Now, the Gemara also feels that. So why does the Gemara feel that the Krashim were covering the whole thing? The Gemara says, look, they were all roofed, they were all covered, and Rav Chia said that it's all Rishut Rabim. Why does the Gemara feel that they were covered? The simple pshat's like this. Because, they have a picture over here, but the wagons, okay, from wall to wall, there were 2.5. Okay? 2.5 amot, which was about 5 feet. It was about from this table to that table, right? It's about 5 feet. Something like that. So it's about 5 feet, and that's what they were. Then you had, I like this very much because it's almost exact. Look at this, Rabbatai. You see these 2 tables here? It's almost exact measurements. These 2 tables was from wall to wall. There's a wall there, inside there's Rishut Yachid. The wheels are the chairs here. Your chairs and this chair. They were only 1.25, so this was 2.5 amot. But from here to there was 1.25. From here to your end of your wheel was 1.25. You could actually look at these tables beautifully and look at them as a wagon. Your chairs are the wheels, and this is the area. So 1.25, 1.25, 2.5. Altogether, 5. Okay? So now, the krashim were placed, didn't go length to length. They went the opposite way. These krashim were massive. We're going to see how big they were. They were 10 amot long. It's 20 feet long. And they were placed, their length was going this way, across the wagon. Okay? So the Gemara says that if you put them across the wagons, then they stuck out, and they now, in between this wheel and the next wagon, right, again, was another 2.5. It was another 5 amot.
2.5 and 2.5.
Right, every wagon had 2.5 afterwards of space. So altogether, 2.5, then another 2.5 of space, and then the next wagon. Okay? So the Gemara feels that the krashim were able, the krashim of that wagon and the krashim of this wagon came out and they covered the whole area in between the wagons, and everything is covered, and therefore, and it's still Rishut Rabim. Incredible, right? Fine. So the Gemara says, and still, so the Gemara says, no, kikam rav bidarata. No, bidarata means there are little spaces in between that are not yet covered. And when Rav Chia said that there was an area in between the wagons, okay, and underneath the wagons, that was Rishut Rabim, he's referring to the areas beneath the wagons that didn't have a cover. There were some spaces that didn't have to be taken. Now the Gemara is going to go through the math now, exactly.
But between the end of the wagon and the wheel, this is still considered Rishut Yachid or Rishut Rabim?
Rishut Rabim.
Yes, Rishut Rabim.
That's what Rav Chia said. Now, the Gemara is trying to say that there are spaces, by the way, in the bottom of the wagon also, because if there's air, it's Rishut Rabim, because there are spaces that the Krashim did not cover. Krashim did not cover. Okay? Now the Gemara wants to figure that out. How is that possible? Now, how many Krashim were there? There were 48. 20 on the north side of the Mishkan, 20 on the south side, and there were really 8 on the other side, because there were 6, and then like in the 2 corners, there was one like this and one like that. Okay, so you have 48 Krashim.
What's Krashim?
Krashim, I'm sorry, are the cedar wood beams that were the main foundation, the beam of the Mishkan. Pillars. Beam. Standing up. They were massive. Look, let's try to do the math, says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, Orku de agola kama have. What is the length of each wagon? Chomish amin. 5 amot. Okay? So put you the keresh kama have. What is the width of every keresh, of each one of these pillars? Amta upalga. So you have the length of the wagon is 5 amot. Now you're going to put the width of the krashim across the length. Like if this was one of the krashim, and it just goes long, really long, goes all the way down there. I'm going to put its width, not its length, its width across the length of the wagon. So if the wagon is 5, let's go figure out how many wagons do they have? Thank you. How many wagons do they have? 4. And you have 48 krashim. So you're going to have 12 krashim per wagon. Now you're going to put the width of all those 12 across the wagon. It
wasn't that they were using 2 and 2 to hold both of them because they were so long. It was each wagon got its own set of krashim.
Well, even if it did, but it's going to be 12 per wagon right now. It's for sure, right? 12 will go on a wagon. Maybe, no, Pashtus not. No. 12 per wagon. Okay? So if it's 12 on this wagon, 12, 12, 12, 12. Now,
12 pillars?
12 pillars per wagon. And the wagon is 5 amot long. And each pillar, how wide is it? Amta upalga. But this is that hard. 1.5. Now, fine. So now, kama motiv, tlata. So if you're going to put rows of 12, right? So how many rows of krashim are you able to put on the length of agala? 3. Why 3? Because you're going to put 3 rows, you're going to stack them on top of each other. Right? You're not going to be able to put 12 times 1.5. It's only 5 amot. You're going to fall off. So you're going to have to stack them. So I'm going to do one pile of 4, another pile of 4, another pile of 4. 4 times 3 is 12. So now each pile takes up 1.5. 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 is 4.5. So you're missing a half amma in between these rows, a half amma of space. Now, how are you going to divide that half amma? You're not going to have it just in one spot. You're going to do everything doing very evenly. So you're going to have a quarter of an amma in between the first row and the second row. And between the second row and the third row, you have another quarter of an amma of space. How much is a quarter of an amma? An amma is 6 tfachim. So 1/4 of an amma is 1.5 tfachim. 1.5 tfachim. So poshale palga de am. So you're going to be left with a half a amma. When you divide that half a amma between the rows, you'll be left with a quarter of an amma. A quarter of amma, Rabotai, is 1.5 tfachim. Rabotai, loved. Kilovadomi. Loved means that you don't see the space. It's not 3 tfachim, it's 1.5 tfachim.
Spread it out a little bit.
What?
You can see on the graph.
It's spread, but you see that space. That space doesn't matter. So you're trying to answer me what? That there were some spaces. It's very nice there were spaces, but those spaces are also covered and roofed. So we're back to the kasha that you roofed Rishut Rabim and considered Rishut Rabim because Rav Chia said that area was Rishut Rabim. So the Gemara says, the Gemara thought that they placed them on their sides. You know, there are 3 dimensions. There's the length, we're not going to length, but the width, and then there's the thickness. I don't know what you call it, right? So the Gemara thought that we put them on their longer side. The Gemara says, no. They stacked them like this. Not like this, they stacked them like this. So there's more room. So the Gemara says, okay, you think they put them on their backs, on their width? On their edges they placed them. Okay, so the Gemara says, okay, let's do the math. You think you're going to gain more space and you're going to get out of lavud? You're going to find an area that has ear space of more than 3. You're going to point and say, aha, that area that is more than 3 was the area that Rav Chia was talking about. Everything's saved. You don't have a roof over that. Says the Gemara, let's do the math. Soif, sumcha, the keresh kamahava. How much is it on the edge? Amta. It was 1. It wasn't 1.5, it was 1. So the keresh was, now you know what it was. Torah says so. 1.5 by 10 length by 1.5 by 1. So now you're going to make piles. Kamahava motiv. How many rows can the Levi make on this agala of 5? So the Gemara says, Arba. He can make 4 rows.
How would you feel 5, 5, and 2?
Huh?
Which one is?
Oh, why don't you just put 5 on? Because they're going to fall off. Because since they're so high, there's a few reasons. The reason number 1 is because, first of all, it's going to be exact. They don't want to do that. Basically, it's mamish at the end of the wagon. And you have to mamish squeeze it in, right? That's number 1. And also because Rashi said that there was something else coming out of the what's it called? And they had these rings for the bolts to go through to hold the crushing coming out. So you're not able to really put something 5 rows of 5 krashim. So how many do you have? So the Gemara says, Abba. You put 4 within the 5. So now you're left with an amma of space. So Pashalo Amsa, you're left with an amma of space. Kishadili mar beinu beini kilavadami. So the Gemara says, when you put the space of 1 amma between 4 rows, you're also going to have lavud. Because between every space, you're going to have a third of an amma. You're going to have 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. In between row number 1 and 2, you're going to have a third of an amma. Then between 2 and 3 and 4, a third of an amma. And the 4th row is the end. So you're going to have 1 whole amma, a third, a third, a third, but each one is 1/3 of an amma. What is a third of an amma? 2 tfachim. Still love it. Honich lemanda omel krashim ilmatan oivin amma milamala kolin v'hoilchin ad ke'etz b'shape. So the Gemara says, if you tell me that the krashim were 1 amma, and you see this machlokes tanoim, how they looked. On the top they were an amma, but they started kolin v'hoilchin. They started getting thinner. They became more like, they went up like to a point. Kolin v'hoilchin, and they became so thin, ad ki'etzba, until they became only the thickness of a finger shaper. So then you could tell me it very beautifully, because there were places by the ends that were actually more than 3 tfachim wide, spaces that were more than 3 tfachim wide. At the end, where they came out, in between the 2 agalot, in between the 2 wagons, there were spaces that, since the ends of the krashim were there, and they're only a finger wide, so they went down many, from 1 amma to 1 finger. And how many fingers are there in an amma? There are 4 fingers in a tefa. There are 24 fingers in amma. So it went down like, to a 24th of its size. So there's going to be plenty of space over there of 3 tfachim. But according to the man of Omer, that just like beneath there's an amo, so milmalo on the top part, they're also an amo. When they went up, the kashim stayed an amo. So we're back to the kasha. What are you going to say? So the Omer Rav Kahano. Be'at be'eh. We're speaking about that we didn't have even spaces between each row. What they did is they put 2 rows of krashim right next to each other, and then they put 2 rows next to each other on the other side, so that each row strengthened the other, and they weren't able to just suddenly topple. They wanted them to be together. So therefore, in between, what they did is they put 1, 2, they left a space of an amma, and then 1, 2. They wanted the 2 to really be tight against each other, to hold each other. And therefore, there was an amma of space in between, and that amma of space in between is what Rav Chia was talking about. That was a Reshut Harabim. Because underneath the agalah, and between the wall and the tire and the wheel, and between the two agalot, that amma remained. And that was a Reshut Harabim. So there was a Reshut Harabim there. But anything that has a roof over it is not a Reshut Harabim. So the Gemara says, the word be'at be'eh.
In a clip formation.
What? Clip?
Clip formation.
Basically, so the Gemara says, at be'eh chamanachlo. Still, how would you put the rows of the krashim in this way? Agaba de agolo, on top of the wagon. Agolo gufa mekorahava. So, how could Rav say that underneath the agalot was Reshut Harabim? The agalah had a floor. So even if that space was a space between the krashim, very nice. But underneath the agalah, you can't call it Reshut Harabim. Between the agalot, you can call it Reshut Harabim. But underneath the agalah, in that space on top of the agalah, where you have that, where there's no krashim placed, but beneath the agalah, there's still a roof above it. So therefore, the Gemara is, so Amar Shmuel bitedot. They actually did not have a floor, and they had little pegs going across, and there were very large spaces, and there was no lavud there, and that's what the wagons looked like. The wagons did not have floors. Fine, they just had like 1 peg and then another peg across. They were very old-fashioned, and therefore the spaces in between the pegs was more than lavud over there, and everything's fine. I think we should stop here. Okay, Baruch Hashem, at least we're on the page. Okay, Batai, let's say Shabbat, no curfew this week, Baruch Hashem. See you 10 o'clock over here.